Rebecca Clayfish, who now runs this group she calls the 1848 Project and is clearly running for governor, released a video today exposing the extreme radicalism being spewed out at one university here in the state of Wisconsin. If you had to guess which one it is, and this is what it's come to anyway, you can't guess because you got an almost equal chance with any of them. I don't think this would have been, you talk about kind of an off-the-radar public university in the state. UW River Falls. You know why River Falls is off the radar? Nobody knows where it is. You get people to describe, it's not even on an interstate. It's it's just off the Minnesota border. It's to the west of Eau Claire, not too far from the Twin Cities. River Falls. Rebecca Clayfish did a video in which she showed the website of UW River Falls and the material on their website dealing with race, education and resources for allies. And then under it, Justice for George Floyd, a guide to allyship. And that a guide to allyship is what we call a hyperlink, I think. What's a hyperlink? It's when you click on something and it goes to a link, right? When you see something on a web page and, it's like where you click on that, that's what it is. So on River Falls' web page, there's this link that you click on that reads, and I'm going to read the quote again, Justice for George Floyd, a guide to allyship. When you click on that, this is what you come up with. This is what UW River Falls is sending you to. Under the headline, All Cops Are Bastards, it reads, Good cops do not exist. The claim that individual cops can be good is rooted in white supremacist mythology that suggests racism is an individual act committed by anybody. Policing is not a question of individualism. It is not as if a random individual gets a gun, a badge, a police car, and a blue uniform. The police are a highly organized institution with systemic power. In order to understand any institution, it is important that you start with the history of that institution. The institution of modern-day policing evolved from, for those of you who don't know critical race theory, you don't know where they're going to claim it evolved from. Evolved from the slave patrol system. See, everything comes back to slavery. So they're claiming that policing that we have comes from the people that patrolled the slaves. Right. Now, how they explain how we had police in the parts of the country that didn't have the slaves, I don't know. Back to the piece. To suggest that there are good cops is like saying there's good slave patrols or good colonizers. It acts as if if policing is an individual act that isn't a product of racial capitalism. A cop might have good intentions, but these good intentions don't change the fact that they are a part of a system that is rooted in anti-blackness. These good intentions don't change the fact that the system they work for criminalizes the whole black community. That's linked to on the webpage of the University of Wisconsin, River Falls. This is what critical race theory is. While we have focused on it at the public school level, the University of Wisconsin system's campuses have been running off on their own. And as I say, ever since the George Floyd incident, in which we started talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, so on, it's allowed these campuses to define those things any way they want. And because you have these campuses run by radicals, they've gone all out radical. This is your tax dollars at work. All cops are bastards, according to River Falls. And then they explain why all policing is an act of racism, because all cops are just the same thing as the old slave patrols. That obviously is rot. First of all, credit to Rebecca. First of all, credit to whomever found it. And This is the same thing's going on at the public schools. People are finding this stuff because they're diving into these websites and they're checking the material and they're taking a look at the garbage that's being sent to their kids and they're looking at the training materials that they're presenting to the faculty and they're catching these hacks red-handed and spewing their hate. Well, somebody found what again, it's not like you had to go very far. It's on the web page of a major state university in the state of Wisconsin. You click on the link and there it is. Within hours of Clayfish doing her video, River Falls changed the web page and tried to avoid people being able to find it. I've managed, from some aides to Clayfish, get my hands on a cached page of their website. That means, in other words, you take a photo of a website so that even if they take it down, you still have it there. It's like the internet, nothing ever dies. The main page originally said, as I said, education and resources for allies, justice for George Floyd, and then a guide to allyship. And then you click out of that link, and it now says education and resources for allies, justice in June. So instead of saying justice for George Floyd, a guide to allyship, that link is down. Now it's justice in June. Choose how much time you have each day to become more informed. In other words, much more sanguine, and I would say probably acceptable. But they didn't change this, and they didn't take it down until somebody exposed it. Credit to Clayfish for doing it. In the same way that I'm crediting Kevin Nicholson for his organization taking on this project. And certainly credit to all of you in your local communities who are working to expose this in your school systems. You have so many of these public school leaders. We don't do critical race theory. We don't do critical race theory. We don't do critical race theory. And then people take a look at the teaching materials that they're giving to the teachers and actually showing what it is. Well, River Falls, I don't think that they can claim they're not doing critical race theory when you go to the web page of a public university of Wisconsin and one click takes you to an explanation of why all police are bastards, their words, and how modern day policing today is not an individual act by an individual cop. No. It is simply the same thing that the slave patrols were conducting. You know, the slave patrols, they tried to find a slave who was escaping so they could lynch them. That's what our police are, according to the link provided by UW River Falls. This stuff will not be combated until it's exposed. And as I said, in the analogy that I used earlier, with regard to the Bucks losing that 39-point game, the critical race theory adherents have gone so far into anti-American hateful radicalism that it's forced this response. That the regular old garden variety leftyism that they've been throwing around forever, they've gotten full of themselves after COVID. They got full of themselves after they shut down the universities. They got full of themselves after the George Floyd situation came in and they got the police defunded and they were allowed to burn down cities with nobody doing anything to them. They get full of themselves and they figured, what the heck? There's no restraints. Especially in a state like Wisconsin with a Democratic governor, let's just put it out there. Let's just put on the website of UW River Falls that all police are bastards. Well, kind of like the Bucks losing by 39 points. They've gotten our attention. And we need to understand who it is that we're fighting against. This is pure hate we're fighting against. People who hate whites, people who hate police, people who hate everything about America. And they are using that hatred not in an attempt to divide us, not in an attempt to give a proper, diversified, melting pot society, but to put us in a society where we all despise one another and most of all despise our nation and despise our institutions. Fine, you have a right to that point of view. But don't expect the rest of us in Wisconsin to pay a fortune in taxes to a university system that puts that crap out. There's a reason why the instant Becky Clayfish drew attention to it today, the people who run UW River Falls tried to get out the whiteout, so to speak, and erase that from existence.